All right, welcome to Late Night Gaming. I am Poem, and I'm here with Mcbober and Solo, and we're going to be talking about Star Wars Unlimited. What's up, guys?
Hey,
What is going on?
Sweet. So, obviously, FFG announced this game recently, and we're pretty hyped on it. We just want to get into, just put our spin on what's going on, what the status is of this game, and what our thoughts are on a bunch of different topics. So first, we want to start with who we are. So late night gaming. Do you guys want to just give your take on what late night gaming is and what it was during Destiny, for example, Star Wars Destiny?
sure. I mean, basically, we're a gaming group, right? We play games. We do live streams, typically weekly. We analyze the cards. We speculate on future cards, where the game's going, and we try to have a good time and it'd be a hopefully a positive influence for the game going forward. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think the one thing I just want to add is like typically, we do like a weekly live stream. We'll get some, try to get some good players on here, and we kind of try to, kind of cater to like a competitive crowd, I guess, is what it is. We're always trying to get better ourselves, and so that's what we did during Destiny. We had a weekly stream. We had a good time. We're playing some high level gameplay. We're hoping this game kind of gives us an opportunity to do that again. And then obviously the other thing is McBobber here is like a pretty skillful gamer, I would say. So he seems to have pretty good intuition when it comes to like particular cards and whether they're good and how they might be incorporated into existing decks and things like that. So whenever new cards get spoiled or released or whatever, um, I like doing these kinds of videos where I can get McBobber's take on things because he kind of gets me up to speed on things I hadn't considered. Um, he's like a supercomputer, basically. You just ask him a question and then it gives you an answer. So, did you want to add anything to that, Solo, about what late night gaming is all about?
Yeah, late night gaming is a conglomerate of friends from across the country who share love. It's centered around Star Wars Destiny, but has gravitated to some other FFG games like Marvel Champions, and that's about as casual as we get. We are a competitive bunch, um, with Poem taking losses harder than others, but it's all in good fun. And you know, McBobber is that guy, and so he helps keep the ship running. If anything breaks, he fixes it. If anything's not working, he'll correct it. And yeah,
Sweet.
so
So,
McBobber love.
all right. So,
Oh boy.
FFG announced, like in their video that they recently put out, they addressed like what had happened to Destiny and the reason why they had to stop making it. They kind of talked about the dice, and it just became, I forget the exact term they used, but they couldn't like make that game anymore from like it was an do you remember what the word was, McBarber? But they just like
I'm
couldn't they couldn't make the game anymore. What do you guys think about that? Like, do you feel like you have closure? Are you like satisfied with that answer? Are you still angry that Destiny ended? Are you frustrated? So I'll start with McBobber.
I mean, I think I pretty much get it. They couldn't do the manufacturing, I guess. They didn't really get into the details, but I would assume, the dice and various components were just made it too difficult to have randomized in packs, and I guess that whole thing just made it really hard from a manufacturing standpoint and for distribution. And they couldn't keep up with it, and they kept making the sets release at weird times. They would never come out on time, and there was always delays. It seemed like that the game was always having production problems as we were playing it. I can think of a couple situations where we had sets come out like really late from when they were supposed to, and we always had speculations if the game was dying or not because we had so many delays of things. So I mean, I think I get it. It makes sense to me to drop those elements going forward with this game. So,
Like,
I,
Solo, do you want? Yeah, go. Did you want to chime in there, Solo?
Yeah, to say I have closure is an open-handed comment. I just think, look, FFG, to give FFG credit, makes phenomenal games. I don't think I've ever played an FFG game and I said, this game sucks, I don't want to play it. I'm not interested in playing. FFG makes great games. My biggest thing, and a lot of friends that I have, their biggest thing with FFG, especially if you're a competitive player, they have not been able to maintain a game for a long period of time. And so
It reminds
yeah,
me of like the stock market with like, like you buy a stock and it's going to last for a long time. It's going to be around. Like that's a good stock to buy. But then,
mhm,
like it seems like FFG kind of like pump and dumps their games, like they,
yes,
they like get everybody to
yes,
buy all the stuff and then they cancel them,
yes.
so that people end up going and buying the new game. I just wonder if it's like intentional, like, and we just haven't caught on to it. Like, is that going to happen to us again? My mindset on this is that I'm going to give them one more chance. They ripped my heart out with Destiny. I loved that game. I loved the community. I loved going to the tournaments and doing the streams and just everything that it did for my life. Like I will never forget that time. They ripped my heart out, and if they do that again, then I will literally never. I will never play an FFG game again. Like this game is they're hyping this thing up like it's gonna go on for decades. Like that's how
Yeah, yeah,
their communication is like, this is the next freaking Pokemon. Buy your stuff. We're buy the cards, build build the decks, go to the tournaments, like go all in because we're not going anywhere. And we'll see.
yeah. They got
Give
their
them one
work
more
cut out
chance.
for them. They got the work cut out for them. They're trying to invade the TCG market. The TCG market is very top heavy, and it's also not only is it top heavy, it's capped. Like it's literally Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and then Pokemon is pretty seasonal, from what I've heard. So you got Disney Lorcana, for those who've been keeping up, that's coming out in August. It's being ran by Disney, so they have the money to keep this thing going for however long they would ever want. So I don't know. FFG just needs to they need to they're taking some pages out of Magic, which we can talk about later with the game setup, but I just think that FFG's burned a lot of people, and there's a lot of people who are in wait and see mode. They're not going to buy anything from FFG. They're literally going to wait and see. But I think, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but I think the two things people want to see when it comes to trusting FFG again is, beyond even timely production, because with a TCG it shouldn't be hard, but they want to see the organized play. The organized play be good and it and be worth getting involved in, like going to your local game store and playing in tournaments and traveling. Like you want us to come to Worlds, right? Well, if you want us to come to Worlds, the prize support needs to be there to make it worthwhile. I know not everyone wins the big hauls or whatever, but still, it's got to make sense. So
Yeah.
these
So
are the
what are
things.
you thinking? I mean, I guess that brings us to the next topic, which was they talked about in this article here that I have here on the table. They talked about this tournament structure, how you earn these points for attending these um, local qualifiers, and that gets you into the Galactic Championship. So it's not like you have to win a tournament to go to Worlds. It's more like you need to show up frequently and just play at your local or go to these local kind of tournaments, and then you earn enough points to make your way into one of these Galactic Championships. So what do you guys
I
think
think
about that type of tournament structure?
I think it's a good idea. The only question is how easy or hard is that going to be, and that's going to be the question. Is it going to be worth it? Do I feel like, all right, I got these points, I'm a good player, or is like everyone has these points, this is pointless. you know, pun
Yeah, I
intended.
gotcha. How exclusive are these Galactic Championships going to be? Is it really going to feel special, or is it going to be kind of like just easy to qualify for them? Yeah, it's wait and see mode.
Yeah,
So then, yeah, go ahead, McBauer.
I'm definitely curious too, much like Solo said about exactly how many points you get for these events and, winning versus, placing in the middle and so on, and how many you need to get to the championship. Yeah, the numbers definitely, I'm curious to see what that's going to be. But I do like how it's like they have their own website and you can check your points and keep track of them easily. That whole interface
Great
sounds pretty
ideas.
cool.
Great ideas.
Yeah,
All right.
this whole like virtual integration of like you have like your little profile on their website and you can see it and see what events you've been to and how many points you got for each one. Like that sounds really cool.
Very
That
good.
sounds like a great idea.
Very, very good. Yes.
Okay. Might get you out of the
I'm
woods there,
with
McBobber. Try to get you out of the woods and go to a tournament or two.
It might. I mean, you guys before were the ones who would push me to go to any events. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it does need to be like we gotta see. That's the one concern I do have with FFG talking about trying to control the secondary market in a sense with what they make, because you do need things to be valuable in order to make it worthwhile, like to win
Well,
an event. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah. Our I guess that actually kind of leads us to the next topic of just like how they're planning on structuring this game as a TCG versus an LCG, and then also their plan to make it so that you can get all of the cards pretty easily to build your deck, but they're making the rarities be around the alternate frames and the foils and stuff like that. What do you guys think about TCG versus LCG, and then their plan for um, you know, making it so that people can acquire the cards they need pretty easily, but we'll be chasing these foils and alternate frames and stuff. What do you think about that?
I'm generally of the opinion that I want it to be as cheap and easy as possible to acquire a playset of the game. I don't know how many copies of cards we can put in our decks. I don't think they've touched on that yet, but well, I don't know what the total investment is going to be to get a full playset. But I hope it's not that high. And based on their comments, it sounds pretty good. Like this idea of making it easy to get all the cards, and then you really the only real valuable stuff's going to be like the foils and alt arts and so on. So that concept seems right up my alley. Well, it'll depend on the execution and exactly how that pans out. I mean, this is a pretty big set. I think there's 252 cards, something like that. So there's a lot to collect. I don't know how many cards are going to be in packs yet, or if they're going to do starter decks, or how that's all going to work. But hopefully it's not a huge investment to get a full play set. That's my hope.
Did you want to say anything about TCG versus LCG there, Solo?
I'm glad it's not LCG. I'm, I'm just glad it's not LCG. I just isn't Marvel Champions LCG?
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, LCG is
Yeah.
just you buy a box that has every card in it, and that's how you get the cards. There's no randomized packs. That's really I
Uh,
think the fundamental difference in release format.
no, I like that it's not LCG because then the secondary market is non-existent. So if you're gonna have like competitive games need a secondary market. I don't know of any competitive game that doesn't
I feel like they might
have
be able to get like the kids and stuff involved because it's a TCG, that whole trading card aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like my son's in elementary school and they're always, bringing some Pokemon cards to school to like trade with their friends to get the other ones. And I mean, I think that's, you know, one of maybe what they're trying to do here with this game. If it's, just try to appeal to like a younger audience. I mean, it's Star Wars. I mean, maybe that's part of it too. I don't know.
One thing they did touch on in their discussion stream or whatever about the game is about how doing it in a TCG format enables you to have more formats of the game you can play in, like drafts and more limited forms of play. And I do like that stuff. I like draft play and things like that. So
Yes. Draft
to
is
me
fun.
that's like the big positive aspect of a TCG versus an LCG. Because I mean, I just want to get all the cards to play the game in its normal, standard format. But I do like drafting, and I think that's fun. So I think it'd be cool that we can do that, especially that's going to be supported right on release. Sounds great.
All right, we're getting through it. What do you think about the art in this game so far?
I personally like it. It feels like old school-ish. It has like this old school dramatic flair to it. I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels like nostalgic. Like they're nostalgic photos that were taken. I feel like that's what they were going for. They weren't necessarily going for flash. Also, I'm really glad they're not reusing the old images that they have for almost all their Star Wars games. Like, like every Star Wars game they've made up to this point has had the same dang images. And I'm so happy it's different images. The Vader looks great. Luke looks great. So kudos that they're changing it up.
What do you think about the art, Mcbober? I know you tend to gravitate towards that kind of thing. Just have an opinion.
I
So.
think I probably prefer the more realistic art style that some cards in Destiny had, but at the same time, I do like that it's more unified in style, whereas Destiny was kind of all over the place in quality. Um, so that aspect definitely appeals to me a little bit more. Things seem like they all kind of fit together more instead of being more so haphazard. And what we have is still pretty cool. Like Solo mentioned, Vader and Luke look great. I think maybe Tarkin looks uh, a little questionable,
Wah wah. Yeah.
but for the most part, I think this is a pretty good art style. You still have individual artists working on these cards, even though they're trying to do the same art style. So it's going to vary in quality a little bit from card to card based on the artist. But from what they've shown so far, I think it looks pretty good. So I don't really have any complaints here. The
I knew
templates look cool too.
Mcbobber would have a gripe with one of some of the art already.
I mean, he's not like terrible. It's not. This isn't Winter Soldier and Marvel Champions, but it's just if you compare him to the rest of the cards, he doesn't look quite as cool as Vader or Luke.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I mean, they had to make a Vader look good, right? Like, you can't sell me Star Wars with the ugly Vader.
Some of the other topics we wanted to get to were just like around the game design. So, they mentioned a couple things in that regard. The shortness of each game. they said you can get like 5 games in an hour or something like that. And then they mentioned that multiplayer is an option. So did you guys want to talk about game design?
Yes.
So Mcbober, what do you think about the short game time statements?
I'm not totally sold that these are actually going to be like 7-minute games. Like, I think that was the number thrown around. I think it'll probably depend a lot on what decks you have. I feel like a lot of games undersell their playtime to try to draw more people in with this idea that it's not a big commitment to play it. And that might be the case if you're just playing like basic starter decks and you kind of know what you're doing, and maybe it is really fast because there's not a whole lot going on for complexity. But I would imagine as we go on throughout the game, and especially later in its lifespan, as we get more sets, that these games might run on a little bit longer. But it does seem like it's trying to aim for a little bit speedier of a game. So I don't know, maybe like 15, 20 minutes, I would think would be a longer game based on those comments. But it's kind of just speculation until we know what the flow of a game looks like.
Do we remember how long Destiny took?
I
Yeah,
mean,
for Destiny, I'd say 20 minutes was probably about the standard game that I would play. Sometimes you get shorter, especially if the opponent's scooped pretty quick. But I don't know if you can really account for scooping in game length.
yeah, I
Occasionally, you
think
get longer games too.
I think I like the short game length. If they're coming out and saying that that's kind of how it goes, is because I feel like a lot of times in these kind of games, like who's going to win after the first couple turns. If maybe the first three or four turns, it kind of like. I mean, I feel like that in Destiny sometimes. If bad opener, couple weird things happened, like I can see where this is going, and it's like then I knew I had to play out the entire game, and even though I was behind and it wasn't looking good, and I felt like I was going to lose anyways. Like I feel like the shorter game time can kind of eliminate that a little bit, but we
one
shall
thing
see.
with Destiny though, is like you could fall behind and somehow claw your way back and win. And so that's why this whole 7-minute thing, 10-minute average is kind of like,
Okay.
I don't know how good that is because like we can't really compare it to Destiny because Destiny had the dice and you had to resolve the dice and stuff like that. So I think the dice made the game longer. And so maybe like who played Yu? Do any of y'all play Yu-Gi-Oh? Or have played it?
I've played one game at a game shop. Somebody sat me down.
Because I don't remember, but like Yu-Gi-Oh could be fast. Like if I pull off my one combo, you just scoop in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like one turn kill kind of stuff. Like people would do that in that game.
Yeah.
I don't think this will be that, but
It can't. I don't think it can be because you don't get a turn uninterrupted. I think and that's something I don't know if we're talking about that, but like, well, that's the segment where we're in, like, where it's like Destiny, like it's action here, action, trading actions.
Mcbober, what do you think about multiplayer being planned from the get-go?
I personally am a big fan of multiplayer. I think it's a lot of fun. So I think it's great that they're designing the game with this in mind from the top. Using Destiny as the example again, because that's the game we know and we're from. Multiplayer always felt kind of tacked on in that game. Like I didn't really feel like you could have a competitive multiplayer game. It always felt very casual because it was kind of janky the way it was slapped together. But assuming it's well structured in this, and it makes sense, I think that would be really cool to have like competitive multiplayer formats, right? It'd be cool to have like a 2v2 tournament, that sort of thing. Like I hope that's a thing.
So we have a couple other things we're going to talk about. We want to talk about these individual cards, but I also want to talk about speculating about how the game we think is going to play, so maybe we could talk about that first. for one thing I wanted to know about was how are they going to handle like the RNG aspect? So like Destiny had the dice. Like, what's the RNG mechanism within this game? Do you think?
Well, the normal RNG in a card game is just what cards you draw, and a lot of that influences how big is your deck, how big is your hand size, how many cards do you draw, particularly in a turn or a round or however it's structured. That's often what influences the main RNG elements in a normal card game, and this appears to be kind of following that. I haven't seen any randomized elements referenced anywhere in this game thus far, so I can only assume it's just going to be the cards you draw is the random element.
Okay. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
I think that's mostly pretty fine. I mean, I'm kind of used to that from a wide range of card games, so that makes sense to me. I am definitely curious to find out those details. What is our hand size going to be? How big are our decks? How many copies of cards can we have? Um, we haven't seen any of that stuff, and there are references to base cards throughout the article and throughout the discussion of the game, and like that's going to determine how much health we have. We don't know what that number is going to be either. So I mean,
I mean, it's
maybe these base cards will determine a lot of the numbers of our deck, right? Maybe that'll determine our hand size and our deck size and our health, and all these values will be variable based on what base we pick. I mean, I don't know.
I think a good precursor to what this game is going to be is actually the Star Wars deck builder game they released not too long ago, because it's a similar mechanic as far as the bases and you have a leader, but it doesn't seem like you're attacking the leader; you're attacking the bases. So, and the same thing with the deck builder. From what I've read, I haven't played it yet, but from what I read, first person in the deck builder to destroy three bases wins. But to get to the bases is difficult because you have other game elements that prevent you from going directly for the base. So maybe it could be something similar like that that's going to happen with this game.
Yeah, I'm picturing this running a little bit like Magic, where I think in Magic the player has essentially a health pool, and you have to attack the player to win. Um, and in this case, you're just kind of replacing that player's health pool with the base's health. And
Right.
I don't know if they're going to have to kill all of your like characters to be able to attack your base, and that I would imagine probably yes, but we don't have those rules yet. We do know that there's like two play areas. There's ground and there's space that's being divided into, and you can put your cards in either area based on the type. If they're spaceships or ground characters, and
Now that
presumably,
is
I would presume that if the opponent has no, if you play an X-wing and the opponent has no other spaceships opposing your X-wing, you can attack their base with your X-wing. And maybe if they play a TIE fighter or something, then you have to kill the TIE fighter first before you can attack the base. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably
I
the
think
case unless you have maybe there's certain card effects that let you go around like an event or something, let you like fly past another ship or something like that, and then you can just directly attack the base or whatever.
Yeah, or it could be
like
optional. Maybe
piercing
you could
damage.
just go for the base and ignore their guys, or you can kill their guys. Which would make sense as well. I mean, probably you'd want to kill their guys just so they have less things to use against you, but maybe you want to also rush down their base, so that might be part of the strategy.
Well, I think that's what it sounds like it'll be, right? It sounds like it'll be your choice, right? There's consequences if you rush their base and they're able to out damage you and kill you before you kill their base. So that's also something else you got to keep in mind. Also, momentum, right? Because there is a point of no return in any game, any sport, whatever, when it comes to momentum, right? Where if this person gets too much momentum, your game's over. So I definitely think it's going to probably be something like that, where they want you to make that choice. Like, Are you going to deal with the ground support? Are you going to deal with the air support? Or is your deck like I see decks being primarily space or with some ground support or vice versa? It's I wanted to talk about that. That mechanic I think is very unique.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
interesting. Like
remember
like if you build a
like
deck that's like all, built around space stuff and you can control that area pretty well, then you're susceptible on the ground kind of thing. So you kind of like most likely are going to have to fortify both areas.
Yeah, I'll be very curious if the optimal deck is going to be like a pretty even split, or if it's going to be more like a 75-25 kind of deal, or, what this is going to pan out to be.
or maybe it just depends on your opponent and um maybe there's going to be I know this is going to happen for sure. I know they're going to have things that can go space and ground like
I don't know if they're going to have.
Certain ships that can go both ways or something.
I don't know if they'll have units that can transition to both. I mean, maybe at some point that would make sense, but I do see. I mean, even already we have units like Vader who can, even though he's a ground unit, he can deal damage to the ships, I believe, with his on attack ability. So just because it's a ground unit doesn't mean it can't affect space units, as far as I can tell here.
Okay.
but that is very that's the most interesting part I think of this game. Can we I don't think we've seen anything like that anywhere in at least in a card game, right? That sounds like a more of a miniature game type thing, but in a card game having the two player areas that you have to worry about, I don't see how they could have games last 7 minutes with all these facets.
I mean, I've played card games before that had the concept of having different lanes that you play in. I'm more familiar with it in like digital card games, but
Mm.
it can work. It makes things a little interesting. You know,
How do you? Okay, go ahead.
I've
You're
played
good.
like Marvel Snap, for example. That's a really casual like phone game, but it has multiple lanes that you play in, and you have to consider and think about them all, and that kind of adds to the strategy of it.
So
Mm.
looking at these cards, McBobber, like before we talk about the individual cards, have you been able to ascertain what all these different symbols and stuff mean? And how do you think you pay for cards in this game?
So I could speculate about what these things are. Top left sure looks like resources to me based on the context of the other cards. Bottom left is the red, I assume, is probably damage, and right is probably health. The red 4 would be on Luke, for example, would be his damage, and this blue 7, I think, would be his health. That would be my assumption there.
Yeah, I can see that.
For the top right, I'm guessing those are like his classification of some kind. This might affect your deck building, perhaps. Like you can only use cards that have these symbols,
Mm.
but I don't know if that's means you can only play with those or you get some bonus for playing with those. I don't know exactly what that means yet. But if we look at the cards that's all been revealed, everything has one of those symbols so far that match either Luke or Vader. So all of Luke's cards, for example, all the good cards that we've seen have that. I don't know what exactly that symbol, how to describe it, but it's the yellow kind of off-white looking symbol that he has on the bottom there. All the cards have that on it, like Leia and the X-Wing. And same with Vader, all the cards have that kind of black symbol that he has on the bottom there as well. I'm guessing that's just like a general like bad guy symbol. I don't know if that's supposed to be an Empire symbol or a bad guy symbol or what that represents. I'm not familiar with that emblem from Star Wars. None of these look like Star Wars symbols I'm used to. They all seem kind of abstract. So I'm guessing these are some sort of like faction or hard concept, like ways to divide
Yeah, it looks like maybe
things.
this tan thing is like maybe the good guys, and this black one, this purple black one. Is that purple or black? Can't tell.
thought it was black,
is
but it could be purple. It could be hard to tell.
that's the bad guys, and then it's interesting how like Wing Leader doesn't have one of the other colored symbols on it. Like it only has the good guy symbol.
Yeah. Same with
Same with
Maximum
like Your Only
Firepower.
Hope.
Only has the bad guy symbol.
Right. So like this can be used in any deck or whatever, but then like Tarkin maybe can't be played with Vader or something because like Vader has this red one, or maybe this red thing like doesn't really matter.
I would
Like,
imagine there are certain cards that you would only affect like red characters, maybe events or weapons.
like
if
you can
weapons
play
are
with
a thing.
all, like maybe you can play with all the good guys. You can use that entire card pool, but you like there's certain interactions that work well together if you like play within a certain faction or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine there's gonna be things that care about the symbol of the card you play. I think Vader right now references at the black symbol, his at the action on the like the wide Vader. I don't know what you would call that. After you play the card with the little black symbol, he gets to do stuff. That's really the only reference to these symbols that I see so far. I think Luke. Oh yeah, Luke also he can give a shield to one of the good guy cards. I guess that's what we're calling them. But I don't know if every good guy is going to have that symbol or just the ones we've seen so far. But I assume these are going to determine like interactions between abilities and also maybe your deck building. But it's hard to really know a lot until we see more cards and maybe get the deck building rules.
Okay, so
But
do you want to have any other hot takes on any of these cards that we haven't talked about yet? Like, are we?
well, you did ask about how do we pay for things, and
Okay.
that part I can only guess. Obviously resources are a thing. We see cards have resource costs. We have references to resource costs, like on You're My Only Hope. It makes things cheaper. But as far as how you get resources, I don't know. They haven't said about it. I don't know if we're gonna have resource tokens or how
It's
this is.
FFG. We're definitely going to have tokens for resources.
I mean, we have some other tokens on some cards being referenced, so yeah, we might have resource tokens. And I don't. Maybe our base tells us how we generate resource tokens and how many we get, or it's some other. Maybe we play cards that do it, like Magic. But I feel like that's not a very popular system, the whole Magic mana thing. So I doubt they're gonna go that way. I'd imagine it's probably on the base, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Now, to speculate a little bit about the bases, I wonder if the bases are going to have their own special abilities, how many different bases they're going to be, or do bases come with every leader, or can you mix and match the bases based on a certain strategy? That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
I
I feel
mean,
I feel like the bases are going to be very impactful, and we haven't seen them yet.
yeah, I think you're going to be able to choose a leader and choose a base, and that's going to be part of like the whole deck building is which of those two things you're choosing to start with.
Yeah, because it's
Be like the
unlimited.
starting
That's
point.
what they
Yeah.
keep. That's what they keep pushing down our throats. Is like unlimited, unlimited, unlimited possibilities. So,
Yeah,
yeah, you're
I feel
probably
like
right there, Paul.
choosing your base it might not even be as important as who your leader is, like on that level. I think it's going to be a big deal.
Do you want to talk about these individual cards and like speculating? I don't know. It might be way too early on like whether you think that card's good or not. Like, are we at that point where we can we can do that?
I don't think I know enough. Like the wing leader mentions giving experience tokens to a card. I have no idea what experience tokens do. Can every card use experience tokens? How do cards use them? Like, can they level up? Do only certain cards level up? I don't know what this concept is. It sounds neat. I like the idea of cards that level up, but I don't really know what this does or what it means. So it's hard to speculate. Tarkin looks good. I mean, he searches your deck for cards, and you get to put one in your hand. I mean, that sounds like an ability that would typically be pretty strong in almost any other card game. So it's hard to imagine that's not good.
You get two cards. I mean, that's pretty strong.
Yes.
I immediately saw. Obviously, my mind went to "You're My Only Hope." Um, you guys know how my mind thinks. It's like free stuff, like friends in high places, in Destiny. Like, I just give me the
Broken.
free
That
thing.
card was broken.
Yeah. So getting you know some to play something for 5 less, um, or for free if you only have 5 left on your base seems pretty good. Even, I mean, 5 less is at any point in the game seems pretty strong. I guess you have to pay 3 for this card though.
Yeah, it would suggest that your deck would need to be mostly expensive cards to make this worth it, or you would have to have some way to manipulate what the top card of your deck is.
Yeah. Well, my mind went there initially, was just, how can we, make this work?
Yeah, it might end up being really strong, if we can manipulate what the top card of our deck is, or if playing a deck full of really expensive cards is viable. It might depend on how resource generation works.
Yep. Well, are there any other of these cards that we want to talk about? I think we mentioned most of them here.
Well, we got to talk about the leaders. I don't think we've really talked about the leaders much. I think they're
What I'm trying to figure out. So it says once you get to 6, why are they saying he costs 6 up here? Is that because that's how much you need in order to flip him? Is that what it is?
There might be game effects or cards that affect cards that have certain costs. It might just be that sort of future proofing thing,
Okay.
or effects like that.
Like they're just putting the cost there just in case.
Yeah, like there might be a card, like an event that says destroy a ground unit that costs 5 or less, right? And you don't
Gotcha.
want that to affect your leader, so you give them a cost of 6 or 7. This is an example.
well. I do think as we talk about the leaders they do, it'll become easier because so the leaders they start off on like a because that's an interesting mechanic in and of itself, right? So we got bases, don't know what they do, but you have these leaders. We kind of know what they do a little bit, which they have a side where they're kind of like affecting the game, but they're not in the game. And then after that, they something happens to where you can get them in the game and they're fighting now. So that in and of itself is a very interesting mechanic. And
I
I'm
just feel
just curious
like
what you think.
pound for pound, Vader just seems better than Luke.
Yeah, he
Like
definitely looks stronger.
his backside here, he's doing a damage to a unit and a base, whereas Luke's just giving 1 shield. So like, is a shield more valuable than does it just prevent at 1 damage? Because if so, then like Vader's just doing more on that side. And then when you flip him, he's doing 2 damage to a unit, and then again, Luke's just giving 1 shield. So it's just seems kind of bizarre that he's just like straight up better. Like, how does that balance out?
I guess it kind of depends
Well,
how shield tokens work and unit health and so on. Vader also costs 1
well,
more.
Yeah, I mean, he
here's
costs 1
another
more to
thing.
flip, but he's still better on this backside. Like, at least it seems that way to me, but I don't know.
If the way resource
But
generation in this game works is really controlled, like if it's you get 1 extra resource every round or whatever, then if you get Luke one round earlier than Vader, that might be a significant advantage. But I don't know yet if that's how that's going to work.
also, if you look at the epic action, it says if you control 6 or more resources, deploy this leader in its parentheses, flip him, ready him, and move him to the ground area. And then on the bottom right hand side, there's 2 costs actually that I didn't notice before. There's a 4 and then there's a 7. Curious of what that could be.
I think it's telling you
And
the
Vader's a
attack and
5 through
health
8.
that the card would have after you flip it.
I think I just figured out how they're going to do resources. I think it's going to be like Hearthstone. I think it's gonna be based on the round. So round 1, you have 1 resource.
Yeah,
And
it
then
might.
and then round 2, then you have 2 resources. Round 3, you get 3.
Yeah,
That kind of
it,
thing.
it very well could work that way. Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, that system works pretty well in Hearthstone, I feel like. I don't know. Like that would
I'm not
make like this
familiar.
kind of card make sense, like where you don't want a bunch of 5 cost cards, because then you can't play anything in the first 4 rounds or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, Mcbober, you were spot on about the 4 and the 7 representing the damage and the health. Because if you look up this, the front side, the leader side, is right here. Luke is 7 health with 4 damage, and Vader's 5 damage with 8 health.
I feel like this game is like just like Hearthstone. It's like you've got these units, they come out, they do a certain amount of damage, they have a certain amount of health, they have a certain amount of cost, they protect your base. Like it's like Hearthstone.
Yeah, I wonder if you'll be able to like defend with units the way you do in Hearthstone as well, or Magic. Magic also has that similar kind of thing where, when they attack you, you're directly to hit your main health. In this case, your base. You can choose or not to defend with a unit and absorb that attack. In which case, then I'd also wonder if can you defend with multiple units at once, and are they going to do that whole attack defense numbers game?
I think the way it'll be different from Hearthstone is in Hearthstone you have to be able to defend with your unit. It has to have like taunt or whatever.
I thought taunt was. It's been a while since I played Hearthstone. I thought taunt was. Is that the only way you defend?
Like
I thought it was that's they
the
can't
way that
attack you
you
at all.
defend it in Hearthstone is it either had taunt, which would block the opponent from hitting your hero, or you basically played guys and then attacked the enemy to kill them, and that's how you defended yourself.
Yeah, you're right. You couldn't optionally block. I'm thinking of Magic. I think that's where you can optionally block stuff.
Yeah, so maybe in this game, like everybody can either everybody has taunt, like you have to kill them all and before you can hit the base, or you basically can decide whether you want to put your, I don't know, or maybe none of them do. Maybe none of them have taunt. I think it's either probably one or the other.
I
Either
guess we'll have to
they
wait and see.
either they all have to be killed, or none of them do. I don't know.
One thing I am curious about is the leaders. After they enter play as a ground unit and they die, do they turn back
Yep,
into the other side, or are they just gone from the game?
that's a good question. I would think they have to be gone, right?
I don't think you lose the game at that point. I just think you lose that
That
character.
Yeah,
leader.
the leader. You
Yeah,
just
I
can't
think
use it
so.
anymore. That would make
Yeah.
sense.
Like your objective in the game is to like protect your base and destroy the other base. But like if you lose Darth Vader in the process, then it happens.
It is
So be it.
interesting though that like they have epic action, which to me implies probably like once per game you can use that action, which would suggest that maybe there's a way they could flip back into this form to like why would it be a once per game restriction unless there was an opportunity to use it more than once? If that makes sense.
Yeah, like some saucy thing where it's just like you bring them out, they do their damage, then you bring them. And I wonder if they've sustained any damage. Does bringing them back clear them? That'd be interesting to find out.
I doubt they're going to be able to flip back. I mean, I feel like that would be bizarre. I think the epic action is like it happens one time, and the strategy is when deciding when you want to flip into the other form. So obviously, like you said, Luke gets to flip in round 6. it's like if we're playing Hearthstone, you've got that 6 cost guy, which is coming out sooner. That unit is coming out sooner than the 7th cost guy.
Yeah.
So that's in a vacuum stronger. I think we figured out how cost works in this game. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how they're going to do it.
It seems like the most likely way they're doing it here.
Anyhow, is there any other topics left to explore here? I think we kind of went, discussed everything on my list at least.
I think we hit them pretty good here. We mentioned a little bit about actions going back and forth between each player. I wonder if they're going to do, action cheating like Destiny had of ambush effects, and if that'll be an archetype, or if they're just going to not go that route and just keep it at, player 1 does one thing, player 2 does another thing, and leave it there.
I think if they do, they're going to control it, because that was a problem that I remember articles they wrote about getting rid of it for the most part. Like, remember they changed Vibro Knife?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they learned that giving out that action cheating abilities was it was a big deal, so they had to start reining it in. But I hopefully that's one of those lessons they learned from that game, and they can apply it here.
Yes.
I mean, I there's going to be an archetype that is trying to win fast using action cheating. Like they're going to make those cards. They're going to exist.
Yeah, I feel like
that's just a certain template for these kinds of games. Like,
yeah, I think even if we don't have it like in the release set, eventually that'll be a thing. That seems like an easy design space to get into.
Do you think that this game will have a mill win condition?
I was just down.
I'm really curious. I have no idea.
I wasn't gonna say mill, but I was just gonna be like, will there be alternate win conditions? Because I can include mill, but that opens up to other things.
Is there mill in Hearthstone, since that's basically what we're playing here?
Yes. In Hearthstone, the way mill works is after your deck runs out of cards, every time you try to draw a new card, you take damage. And for each subsequent card you fail to draw, you keep taking more and more damage.
Damn.
Which could work here as well. That might be a way mill works.
It seems like, they're making like a Hearthstone reboot with like different lanes where you fight each other, like 2 different play spaces, and like instead of heroes, it's like bases and stuff like that. It's like
it makes sense
seems
because
very very similar to that game.
It makes sense because then your base takes damage because you can't draw cards.
Yeah, your base that's just probably in the rules that your base has to take a certain amount of damage if you don't have any cards left to draw or whatever. Anyhow.
Also, I guess something else that they mentioned in their interviews, they brought up control, and they said their control games lasted about 20 minutes in the interview. So I wonder what that means, because typically a lot of competitive players gravitate to control of some kind, right? And so that's why I think in the competitive scene, unless they make some FN type thing that just does crazy damage output, people are going to be more catering to control, which should make the games longer than they're promising.
I think it just depends on what ends up being more powerful. Again, I guess if you go back to Hearthstone as the example, that game has control versus like rush, face damage definitely as a concept. Those, you have decks that focus on either one, and kind of just based on the card pool at the time and where the meta's at, the best deck can go either way. Sometimes you get some decks that just go face and they don't care about anything else.
Is that the one? Pirate Warrior?
Yeah, that was
that thing just comes in, or Murlocs or whatever those guys. They just come in and they just try to kill you by like turn 4 or 5. They're just coming in crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
But it,
Hearthstone always had some rush decks that existed.
but if you can hang in there, if you can like withstand the onslaught, then they basically become super weak, like mid to late game.
Yeah.
I think the more we talk about this game, like I've said this 10 times, but I just feel like this is going to be Hearthstone 2.0.
Is Hearthstone like not in production anymore?
No, it's a game. It's a great game. It's very popular. It's like a phone game, like a digital. But I think they have like tournaments and stuff, right? I mean, people are pretty into that game.
I played it for a while. It's been a couple years since I played, but for a good long while, I played it. I liked it.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap things up there. Almost at an hour. Let's just hope they give me Sienna Ree and Fire Spray.
Yeah, I'll be curious if pilots are a thing and how that works. And if they're not yet, I assume they will be at some point.
I
All
think
right.
so.
You guys want the last word? What do you got, Solo?
FFG, this your last chance.
It is their last chance. Seriously.
We love your games, but we cannot continue to support you if you keep burning the hand that allows you to eat food. So
Mcbober, last word.
I'm really looking forward to the game. I think it looks fun, and I hope we get our hands on it soon. They did mention pre-release events are going to be a thing, but didn't give a timetable. So I hope we get like a starter deck preview in the not too distant future. Hopefully before the release of the full game next year, because it'd be cool to at least get a demo or something to play with here.
Yeah, when's Gen Con? Everybody keeps talking like that. Maybe that's the time where they're gonna show us more.
Gen Con is August 10th.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna get some like gameplay at Gen Con.
Yeah, hopefully we get starter decks at Gen Con or something, and then we can try it out.
I highly doubt they'll have starter decks at Gen Con. Because if they're
Maybe
releasing
if you go to Gen
2024,
Con, you can play it or something. Like if you're like in attendance or something.
Well, then hopefully somebody gets pictures of all the cards.
Well,
I was really trying to go to Gen Con.
we're gonna play this legit. We're gonna wait till it comes out, Mcbobber. Okay. Hold your
Well, look,
horses.
I have a friend who's going to Gen Con here. I was trying to go, but having a daughter, so July 8th, so that's my wife is not letting that happen. So yeah, so I have to lean on my friend to see if he can get us some pictures.
All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and end it there. And if you made it this far, you're my hero.
Thanks for watching, everyone.